Hello, Nicola.
Hi, Penny.
How are you today?
I'm okay, thank you. It's sunny in Stockport for a change.
Oof, well, it's not here, so I'll bask in the bit of light that I see glowing into your beautiful garden office. So, I've already done the brief introduction about you, so I think we just dive straight in. And you're a woman who's gone your own path. So, what kicked that off? What started that?
I think, I guess a lot of women, the pandemic made me think in a different way. So, in the pandemic, my children were 3 and 1. And just before the pandemic, I'd gone back to work after having my second son, and I was there for 5 days. And then
And where was that? Where were you?
I
What was
was
that
at
working
a
as?
large engineering discipline company in the centre of Manchester. I had both my children while I was there. They were flexible working and they've been amazing. And obviously, everything that happened with furloughing, I didn't think that that would happen, and it did. And the government had various restrictions, and I just didn't cope very well mentally. That my job, I had it, all my projects were given back to me, then they had to go within 5 days, and I was so ready to go back. Like second time round, I was very prepared, very ready, and then COVID had a different idea, and then ended up being furloughed for 6 months. During that time, my husband was working full time. Obviously, we couldn't get help with childcare; nurseries were shut. Yeah, and it really, really tested me as a mother, but also as a landscape architect. I felt my identity had gone, my job had gone, because we weren't allowed to have communication, which is what the government said. And then after being furloughed for 6 months, I did go back, and it ended up going back only for three. They'd closed the office in central Manchester, which I was recruited for. And yeah, just kind of things aligned. And I was like, if I don't make this jump, then I'm not going to make it. And a friend of mine that was in the industry, he was building a house and he needed a landscape architect to get it through the planning application. And he just said, would you do it? And I was like, yeah, okay, but I'm gonna have to start on my own business to do it. I can't do it through my current workplace. And he just said to me, well, I did it, so you can. And I was like, is it really as simple as that? But yeah, and that was it really. The catalyst was that one project, which is fortunately is not far from me. And that was it. I just threw everything into that basket and kind of jumped ship, set up the own business, and then yeah, just went for it really. And I was just fortunate to be supported by said friend that helped me out, introduced me to a lot of contacts. Because when I was first setting up, I was subject to, I wasn't allowed to approach anyone that I'd previously worked for. You weren't allowed to contact
Okay.
anyone. So it was like a confidentiality clause in my contract. So I was very aware that I didn't want, not that I did, I never broke it. But I didn't want to be seen as being the bad guy. And I wasn't. And it was all fine. And yeah, here we are 4 years later.
Well, especially the loyalty's gone both ways. If that company's been really good about flexible and all the rest of it, it's just a situation out of anyone's control and unprecedented, as the word
Yeah,
kept
and I
being
wanted
said.
to focus on, I guess, the different aspects of the design. I was doing more high level strategic work, and I kind of wanted to carve my path in something that I know I'd have an impact on straight away, which is a smaller scale. I'm still doing the commercial work of like 200 homes, master planning that, but I was doing really, really high level work where I had a kid in between one of the projects being submitted. So that's how long it went on for. And I wanted to make a bit more of an impact, and I felt if I did it my way, that I would. And little did I know the way it panned out for me.
Yeah, super similar. And I think as well was it's that lack of control feeling. Maybe that's what comes through, and it's like, okay, I'm ready to go back, and then it's taken all away again, and then the office goes. And I guess if you've had that, and then you sort of feel, well, if that's not as secure, maybe actually the more risky thing is less risky if I
Yeah,
can be in control of what I'm doing.
yeah, I'm a massive control freak, and when obviously everything happened with the pandemic, it had gone. And I think the only thing holding me back setting up on my own was being surrounded by people in that office environment, because I'm a very people person. And
Yeah.
when that went, that was taken out of, like, it had gone. I was like, well, if that's gone, then I'm working from home. I may as well just work for myself.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting what you say about being a people person as well, because I think that is what's quite different with your practice, isn't it? That it's out of the glass box and working like people work with you, it's directly you.
Yeah, I do everything at the moment. Whether that might change in the future, I don't know. But I was finding the industry, it wasn't very personable. People were hiding behind a PR machine or hiding behind quite big egos. And that's just not me. Like, I've just been authentically myself, told my story. I've got 2 young children. I want to work the business around them. I'm a young female, still wanting my career and family, and I am in a primarily male dominated industry. But to me, I've been a landscape architect for 15 years now, and I've always been used to it. Like, it doesn't phase me anymore. Yeah, the discrimination still exists, the bias still exists, but people need to say things to change it. And I think when I was given that natural platform, when I did appear on the news about the gender pay gap in construction, I was kind of given a platform that not many people get, because I didn't have to hide behind a work if they were
Yeah.
like, oh, you can't say that. I was honest, and I think things kind of snowballed from there, that people realised that, yeah, I am pretty gobby, but it's a situation that we're in, and if nobody talks about it, then nothing's going to change. But what I'm seeing now in construction is that younger generation practices are coming through, where they follow the same principles. All the staff are flexible working. They're not hiding behind the egos, and I found a lot of those people, and those people, like, I hold quite dear, and a lot of them have become, I guess, friends. But like, I work with them every other day or project by project, and they've just become, there's some really nice people in the industry, and it's finding those and kind of disregarding, I guess, the ones that it's commonly known for.
Well, there's a lady, Alan Hamilton, and she has a great quote that's "Be yourself so other people can find you." And I think once you start voicing up, then other people also make themselves known to you as well if you're speaking up.
Penny, you're frozen.
Oh, let me just 1 second. Just going to stop it 1 moment. Um, yeah, there's a lady who I really admire, who has, Alan Hamilton, who has a great quote of "Be yourself so other people can find you." So you voicing up and speaking means other people, it gives them permission, or maybe helps just add to that conversation. Because even yourself, I know early on there was the question, like, I don't want to be known as the gender pay gap warrior ahead of or above that I'm a really, really good landscape architect, and that we're put in that position to feel like you can't be both things.
Yeah,
But
when we
actually, is
actually set the business up, I didn't know whether to call myself by my name because of being misconstrued by my gender. And I was like, but it's my name. So why don't I use it? I'm proud of it. And a lot of designers use the name as the name. But because I'm in an industry that's predominantly male, I'm like, well, they're going to judge me straight away because they're going to know it's not a generic name. It's me. But then I thought, you know what? Fuck it. I'm me. So I'll use it. And
how crazy is it that the bold move has to be off the bat that you're just using your name, but it's true.
yeah, well, it was, how am I going to be judged? That was my first question. It was like, how am I going to be judged? But then I thought, you know what? If I'm judged by my name and for being a female, then I don't want to work with you anyway. So I was like, I'll just do it. And then, yeah. So that was the first thing that I made the comment on, would have been the name, which is crazy thinking about it now. But yeah, I want to be known for being a good landscape architect. But also at the same time, it's very important to talk about the issues that I did raise, because when I did, and when I did appear on the news, I got so many comments from like peers, people in the industry that don't necessarily just do landscape, saying, well, this happened to me and this happened to me. And it's proved that there is a lot of issues that still align in construction, and it's not just construction, it's a society-wide issue. But when I had people coming to me saying, I'm so glad that you've actually said that, because I can't, because they're subject to an NDA or they're just traumatized by a previous experience, that I was able to give them that voice. And I'm thinking, do you know what, if I've got that, then I'm doing it for them. as well as
Yes.
the future that follows. I'm doing it for the people that can't speak, because they've got employers that will be like, right, you're sacked, you're off, type of thing. And it's like, I'm doing it for the like a minority, but for the majority, if that makes sense. So if I can be that
Yes.
person, then I'm happy to be that person. And yeah, it really snowballed like from there. And I then got involved with the Landscape Institute, which I sit on the advisory council for. I sit on the EDI group in there as well, and it just became, and then I got involved with the awards following that, and it just became that. And an article was wrote about 100 years of women in landscape, and I co-wrote that with two other amazing female landscape architects who had issues in the industry as well. And they were like the original pioneers of change. And I was just saying that it's not really changed much since they raised the issue. And if we're going forward 15 years now and it's still going, we've got so much more to go. Things are changing. It doesn't happen overnight. But when I was saying before that I'm finding people that I want to work with, when I'm finding consultants I want to work with, when you come down to it, their fathers, their mothers themselves, or they're just genuinely nice humans, and you find your own little family of connection. It doesn't have to be the typical view of the construction industry.
No, and to not be that typical view, you need to be not the typical person or company or structure, company structure out of the glass box. I love doing it to say that. And also, just as a little anecdote, with that news thing, just so that we all know, like what's having to be dealt with behind the scenes.
Oh, well,
what happened?
Right, so I replied to an article that Pregnant and Screwed put out during the pandemic. They asked for examples of how women's career had changed because of the pandemic, and I'm like, well, mine did. I decided to sack my job off that was like pretty, like having a monthly income all the time. It was, and then I just,
and a nice company.
And a nice company, yeah. I just like, you know what? No, for my future of my family, for me, I want to do this. And if it doesn't work, I'll just go back in 6 months' time. 4 years later, we're still going. But like, yeah, I that interview, I responded to it, and then 2 days later, the BBC turned up in my garden. With like this boom mic, because it was in the pandemic, and I was sat here in the office and they were out there sticking a camera into the office. Watching it back, I don't half cringe, but after the whole interview, it was the cameraman doing the interview because you weren't allowed more than just him in my garden.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of the interview, obviously I was really nervous anyway because I was subject to that 6 months confidentiality clause, so I had to be really careful. I didn't want anything to happen. But then towards the end, he went to me, I've just been asked from head office if I could get a shot of you washing the pots. I was like, pardon? And he looked at me like really sheepish, like something, it's obviously come down higher up in the BBC. And during at the time, I spoke to quite one of the high up directors there. I can't remember her name, but she was so lovely. And she was basically saying, we never get airtime on something like this. So we need to go with it and we need to run with it and we need to get it out there because we don't normally get the airtime on something like this. So I was like, right, yeah, no problem. And then towards the end, he asked this. I went, I just said to him, are you taking the piss? I was like, this is an article about the gender pay gap in construction. But I thought, do you know what? If I'm going to, I was like, for one, you can't even get your camera anywhere near my sink. And then he asked me to wash the pots with the typical IKEA coloured plastic bowl and plate. And I'm just thinking, now you are taking the piss. Who sent this from? It's clearly come from somebody up there, like higher up, basically taking the whole Mickey out of the whole article.
Yeah,
trying to override it. And I remember once that I'd gone,
I'm laughing, but it's horrific.
It's so bad. I came back to my husband and said, they asked me to do this. He went, you are joking. I was like, no. So I ended up speaking to the director and I just said, look, this is what happened. I understand that the cameraman was he was so uncomfortable asking it. So it's clearly come from a place that he didn't want to say it, but he had to. It's somebody higher up spinning it down, which, knowing the BBC, that doesn't surprise me. And yeah, he was so uncomfortable. And then when I spoke to the director, he went, oh no, don't worry, it won't make airtime, that. And I was like, then why did you say it? then why did he have to say it? Why did you make that staff member feel really uncomfortable? And obviously going completely against what the frigging article was about in the first place. But I never said that happened until 2 years after, because personally, the issue of the gender pay gap that existed in construction was more important. That deserved the airtime. And also, I didn't want to be that person, be like, oh, well, I've done this, and then they told me to wash the pots. I'm like, I want to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
No,
and it's like not allowing that to overshadow. But I just thought it was interesting, like, because on here we're a lot of backstory, and I think it's just interesting for people to hear. Like, it's just these little extra things that just everything you do, you just add on a little bit. Oh, you've been a bit confident to be on the news. We'll just try and...
I can't watch it, Penny. I'm not going to lie. There's a link to it on my website, and I'm just like, oh, I remember the director was like 10 minutes before it went on, and I literally followed Donald Trump's impeachment trial, the most awkward thing to follow. And then I was like this, sinking in the chair, but it came across all right, I think.
It absolutely did. And exactly what you were saying about it's bigger than you. It's like more, you're doing this for the others, for the future, and that's what it's done. And we always have a little cringe at ourselves, but it was important work, and it's made a big change and made a big shift. And do you think that actually the concern about both calling yourself your name and speaking out on gender pay gap and basically women in industry, particularly construction, has it actually had more of a positive
comeback? It's normalised it. For me, it's normalised it. And the people that I've navigated through, they're in a similar situation to me. They're starting families, or they've had their family, and they get it. They've moved around in business. They've found companies that accepted them. Some haven't. Some are still finding their own path. So it's normalising it in the industry, I think, for me, that sometimes it's not okay, the things that are happening, and what to do if that does happen to you. Like, I've had people come to me like, right, this has happened to me, what can I do? And because of everything that I went through with Pregnant and Screwed, I was directing people to them, to ACAS, to the actual legal side of the flexible working thing. I was basically giving them loads of ammunition. People were coming to me asking to change the maternity policy at the current workplace. What can you help me with? So I literally just sent them like all the stuff that I knew. I was like, right, there you go. And it was things like that, little things that will make a difference.
And the Pregnant and Screwed, for people that don't know, do you want to explain a bit about what they do as an organisation?
So it's fronted by Jolie Braley, who is from Manchester, and she was made redundant because of having a child, and I think she was the powerhouse behind it, that then set up the charity that provides support for both females and males that are discriminated against in the workplace, for regarding paternity, maternity. And they've just been, it's an incredible charity. And along with her and the Flex Appeal that was done by Anna Whitehouse, those evidence basically then form the basis for this flexible working bill that's just been passed. And if it wasn't for those charities and how vocal they were and what they provided, it wouldn't have got as far as it's got now.
And yourself getting involved in that just shows you think it's not that much of an impact, our voice, our singular voice, but by doing the thing, speaking about the thing, it really does make a difference.
It makes a huge difference when you see where Jolie and Anna first started out the businesses, like 7 years ago, to where they are now, and they're making legal difference. They're making difference to hundreds and thousands of people's lives. Like, if you can start that process from something that you think so small, but you're changing people, and effectively they'll be saving people's lives as well. So
yeah. Well, because we talk about, like, it's carving our path, but also carving a lifestyle. Like you say, you've got 2 boys, and you can work a high standard practice around also getting to see your 2 boys and work around that. And one thing that you were saying about, like, being able to be authentically you with what you do when you've created your own thing. So the history of it, because it even runs in your family, doesn't it? You were saying about your granddad as massive influence.
Yeah, so as a young child, we spent a lot of time in their garden. Growing up as children, we had lots of family birthdays, parties. My little boy learned to walk on their lawn, and I did the same when I was little. And it became more of a. It wasn't a hobby, it became that part of their life. And I
Yeah.
think because I was shown it from an early age, like shown how they worked with the land and how they enjoyed it and their passion behind it. And then later on, recently, I lost my grandma 18 months ago, and more recently, my auntie's just passed away. And going through those photos, you can see how much that space meant to the family. Like my grandma built this wall. She was such a change maker when she started having her children, and I just think I've got those genes in me, that passion for wanting nature to be surrounding me. And they were always taking us to parks and things like that. It's kind of instilled in me, and I think the passion is there because I was shown what it's like to be surrounded by all this at an early age, that my children now would prefer to be in a brook building their beaver dam in the woodland than being stuck behind a tablet. Like, they love being outside, but that's become from me, but also my husband enjoy. He was brought up in Cambridgeshire, surrounded by loads of fields. So between both of us, our children were always going to be wanting to be outside. But yeah, they were huge influence. And yeah, my granddad still is. He's always interested now to finding out what I'm doing and what I'm up to. And yeah, always there.
But it's great that it's like, I can imagine, so you've been brought up where it's really like part of the family, as it were.
Yeah,
And then when you're working in industry that it is more like you're having to hide a bit of yourself, you're needing to fit into a very male dominated industry. There's a lot of egos, there's a lot of like behind the scene, like it's presenting a front,
yeah.
and that you've switched it to be able to be as genuinely you and your family as your grandfather and your grandmother and auntie, but with the modern spin on it of doing it as your business. I love that.
Yeah, I don't hide behind it anymore. Like, I don't apologise for it. I've got the little thing on my footer that says, these are the hours that I work. If I respond in that, you don't have to respond, but it just suits me to not work the typical hours. And then in terms of, like, I guess the more humanity, the more putting yourself out there is Instagram. I'm not going to lie. I am not going to hide behind a very clinical PR like machine. I am who I am, and things will affect the way that I work. So, like, next week's my aunt's funeral, I will put it out there because that's who I am. I'm not going to work that day. And the response that I got from people, it was like, this humans are out there. They're not all bad, and it was just lovely. Like, so many clients and collaborators just being really lovely. And I was like, I've created this platform which that I was scared of at first. I wanted both to be known as a landscape architect, but I'm a human, that comes first. And yeah, it's been nice.
I love that, because you even say it on your website. We were discussing it prior camera, because I love how you've got your story on your website, your front and center. Say, like, I work with a lot of women, and then at first they're not even featured on their website. Like, there's no picture or really about. And I love you're just front and center with, like, this is who I am. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is what I do. This is how you can work with me. And it's just absolutely clear. And it is that frankness and transparency that I think people can connect with.
Yeah, people connect with it, and people buy people in our industry as well.
Yes.
And obviously, they want somebody to do a good job, which I do. I've never let, despite various things going on personally, I've never let clients down. And I really, really enjoy everything that I've been working on. I've had the odd dodgy person that I've had to sue, but
Who hasn't?
who hasn't? It's all right. That said company appeared on my LinkedIn feed the other day, and a contact that I know was sat next to them, and I messaged her and I was like, please don't be that person that gets like involved. And I explained to her what happened. She was like, I'm so grateful you did that, you had my back. And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't want to be the business that shuts like somebody else has because of said person. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah.
had one bad egg in 4 years, so I
Yes.
don't think that's too bad going. I think because I've been so honest and upfront, and from that
Yeah.
bad egg, I had learned though. I learned if I got a new client and I wasn't sure, I'd ask for a percentage of the money up front.
And also that you don't have to work with them as well. If you're getting like major red flags, you can shut it down as
You can
well
just
if
say, I don't
necessary.
thank you for the opportunity, but no. Yeah.
Which again is another, if it's on your own path and you're really sure about why you're doing it and who you're doing it for, because sometimes in the beginning there can be the fear, I can't say no to things because it's work and I've got to take it on. But they can cost you more than they bring if you get the wrong person, both in time, reputation, energy,
Yeah,
all of
especially
it.
if you're not being clear with your output in what you
Yeah.
get. Whereas because it's all listed on the website, and I'm more than happy to show people various examples if they want to see it, because I'm so clear in what they're going to get that I
Yeah.
don't necessarily get people coming back. But yeah.
But it's something that yeah, when we were speaking off camera, because when I'm helping people with their websites, I think you're a prime example. I didn't work on your website, but it's really like an excellent example of just absolute clarity on your offers, what you get in, what it'll cost you if you want to come and have a consultation. So it's like, it's again that transparency and that authentically you, just up front off the bat, like no glass box, no smoke and mirrors,
No, you are what
no
you are. You
no
don't. Yeah.
expectation that you should know exactly how this works. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. No, it was important to put about me, because at the end of the day, if the business is named after me, people want to know who it is and why you do what you do and how you ended up being on the path you ended up. Originally, you wanted to be an architect. Well, that changed when I went to my interview.
Yeah, well, that's another clanger. Just a very quick behind the
I like
scenes on
all
that
the
one.
clangers. Yeah,
But
I
I
mean,
actually think it got you where you're supposed to be when you
it
talk
did.
about with your granddad and things. I
It
do
did.
think the result got you where you needed to be, but it was a shitty comment. Do you want
It
to
was a
say
really
what?
shitty comment. So I basically went for my interview at MSA in Manchester to be an architect. And when I went for the interview, they asked you to draw an elephant on a bike. Like, what's that got to do with architecture? I don't know. But after that, he was looking at my CV and he went, well, you go to a common school, don't you? I was like, pardon? I was like, I've got the qualifications to get on this course. How can you judge what school that I went to? And I'm like, well, if you're making comments like that now, what's it going to be
Well, it
like
was
when I
already,
graduate?
and it was already shutting it down.
I was
And
like,
that's how long ago is that?
oh, 20 years ago.
Yeah, so it's not that long.
No, it's not that long ago at all. And it just completely put me off everything. And the fact that I did my work experience in a local authority that made me design toilets, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. I can't do this forever. And I think that just,
Can you draw these toilets? Can you wash these dishes?
yeah,
No.
I'm not doing it. Well, no, all the disabled access toilets in Stockport are all thanked to me. So if they're all lovely, I'll take the praise. But it just didn't put me on the path that I wanted to follow. And when that comment
Yeah.
was made, I was like, if that's what it's like now, what's it going to be like when I actually get the
Yeah.
job? I was like, no. I was like, instantly, I was like, we're done. So I went out of that interview. I went a few doors down and I found the landscape architecture course and I walked around it and I was like, something in me just clicked. And I spoke to the tutors. They were so lovely. And that was it. I went through landscape, through clearing, and here we are. So if that man hadn't made that comment, I guess things might be different. But
But I wanted to bring it up just because I think it's interesting for people to know, like, he probably doesn't even remember saying it. And he may have said similar things, will have said similar things to a lot of people and not with such
but being
not.
judged because you went to a normal public
Well,
school.
it's the little comments of with class or gender or sexuality, all the isms, and how much of an effect that has when you're already like having to fight in like enter something that you know is not somewhere that particularly is made for you yet.
Mm.
And those little comments, but so using your voice positively whenever you can counteracts these behind the door comments that happen and are still happening that
Yeah.
prevent people from even going there. So I just think it's good for people to hear when these things happen. Anyway, back to positives. So then you took his comment, ran with it, and absolutely smashed landscape architecture, which actually I think feeds your soul much more by the sounds of things also.
Yeah, I went back to the university about 18 months ago and did a presentation about my career to date. And, well, it's going 360 really, going back to the place where the comment was made, but then also presenting to the landscape students. It was, yeah, it was lovely. It was really lovely.
And what would you say then in terms of niching down in what you do? So both like just being really yourself in a business where people are often themselves and that really human approach. What have you seen from that, or what's been the biggest advantages from doing that and speaking up?
I think speaking up, obviously, I've helped others, which that's a massive thing for people that can't speak because of various reasons. That's been a positive that's come from it. But because of speaking up, like I've been given quite a few opportunities of speaking up on a higher level, being involved in panels and being involved with the Landscape Institute and writing articles and various things like that. I never thought that that would be something that would have happened, and it has. So, and then the positives, I guess, the people that who I work with now, design teams that I'm part of, a lot of them are just really lovely people, and it's been finding those and yeah, and holding on to them.
Love it. Find your niche, find your people. Again, we had it with Sally last week. So I love to hear it.
Now, there's
So
things though, the people when it comes to like International Women's Day, and they do the dodgy post about how many female staff they've got and how they're going to give cupcakes to people, and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, I can't anymore. Like, there's not just one day as far as I'm concerned. It's an
no,
ongoing.
it's a life's work.
Yeah,
It's a
but you
life's
don't do
work.
like when that day comes around. I'm like, here we go. What they're gonna come out with this time? And it's just like, oh, you just end up rolling your eyes, and it's like, no.
But it's nice to know that you're doing the work. You're doing the work. Like you
Yeah,
don't need the day announcement. You're doing the
no.
work.
I am who I am, and if people want to work with me, they want to work with me, and if they don't, they don't.
And how do you see where this is going? I know that you've carved it to suit you really for now, and we
I
can be
think
just be comfortable for that. What do you
who
see?
knows what the future holds. I mean, I'd love to employ someone that wants the same flexible lifestyle as myself. Right now, it's a hard climate. Things are going up, things are going down, so it's quite hard to predict at the moment with the industry, with the way the economy is going. So that is difficult at the moment, but who knows what the future might hold. Freddie has started school this September. I didn't just want to jump back into full time. I don't want to ever be full time, if I'm being honest. It's better for my well being that I'm not, that I give myself time. In these four
Agree.
years, I've never worked 9 till 5, ever. I just work when's best. As long as I get the job done, who
Yeah.
cares when I work? And I ultimately I work around my family. So yeah,
So, and see where that goes.
exactly.
Oh, well, thank you so much. That's, yeah, been really insightful. So thank
Thank
you
you for
very
having
much,
me.
Nicola.